Hey ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. As always, it is Nick here, back with your daily crypto news and analysis. And today we're going to be talking about the Great Reset. So obviously there's a lot of assets tied to this, a lot of things within crypto that are tied to this. And ultimately I know everyone's thought process when it comes to, the Great Reset. As we do look at the banking sector, obviously all eyes are on the banking sector as there is most likely going to be a lot more collapses over time. The key word there is that it is going to take a little bit of time. It's not going to happen all at once, but I do think that a lot of these banks are operating on little to no liquidity. What do you see over here? Hey, banking sector, you okay? And here's the unrealized gains and losses on investment securities. Check this out. So all the way up until around 2022, well, guess what? We've seen the banks losing and hemorrhaging a ton of money. Check this out. So held to maturity securities and available for sale securities. Look at this. This is wild. So as we do look at banks, like they are dealing with a tremendous amount of pressure right now, which is why we start to see a lot of banks collapse. The thing is that during times like these, it really does show us which banks are actually safe and what banks aren't. But I will say this, no bank, no matter what size, no matter how much liquidity they have, they're not safe. It's like a crypto exchange, right? I've talked about this many times on this channel. When you look at a crypto exchange and you're like, well, Binance is too big to fail. That's the worst way to look at things. I treat all of these exchanges, I treat all of these banks as if they are going to fail tomorrow. I do not leave my money on the table for these banks and these exchanges to take it all away. So as you do look at banks, I don't believe that banks are safe. I actually think that banks are being pressured into failing. And I know that that's going to sound wild, but I do think that's right on par with what the Great Reset is intended to do. We do see over here as well, just in total credit debt in the US has officially crossed $1 trillion for the first time in history. This comes as average interest rates on credit card debt have hit a record high of 25%. The average American family now holds $10,000 in credit card debt. Another record. Nearly 40% of Americans now have more credit card debt than savings. Americans continue to fight inflation with credit card debt. This is all while household debt has hit a record $17.1 trillion. Mortgage debt is now at $12 billion, while auto loans hit $1.6 trillion. This comes with record high auto loan rates and 7.1% mortgages. Yeah, this is also another big problem, right? Is the typical average individual practically has no savings, no emergency funds, and a ton of credit card debt with massive amounts of interest rates. This is a big deal. And we are about to see a lot of people get wiped out because what we are about to see is nearly a repeat of like 2008. And the thing is that everyone is expecting it, this year, next year. I want you all to understand that the probability of someone predicting a 2008-like scenario is slim to none. Why do you think that they made movies regarding The Big Short? It's because it was so, it's actually not easy, right? It's something that's so challenging to do. So, things like these, like Black Swan events, they come when you least expect it. Go back to March of 2020. It happened when everyone least expected it. Markets were looking good. All of a sudden, boom, it came out of nowhere. And that's exactly how these events happen. But also over here, we do see JP Morgan CEO is warning that tensions between the United States and China have upended the international order. He is right about this. The global order is changing and gold will play a significant role. This is what happens during monetary resets. And yes, we have been following a possible monetary reset centered out on digital assets and crypto and CBDCs and things like that. We actually do see Mike Grant is saying, seems like the time is ripening for the US to think seriously about how it views the future use of digital assets. It could lead to a turning point in these global affairs. The problem is that, I think that right now what they're really focused on is the FedNow service to usher in a CBDC within the US. So far, what we've seen from the US around crypto and digital assets is absolutely nothing. They have not done a single thing around regulations. They haven't even put any time and effort into creating a regulatory framework. Like it's wild at this point in time, how digital assets are being treated within the US versus outside of the US in areas like the UAE, Hong Kong, the UK, you name it. But also, over here with DC, where do we begin on this one, folks? We're here. We're going to support the Chinese people, the Chinese government. Jamie Dimon says JP Morgan will remain in China through good and bad times. And I've seen a few people commenting on this, saying that he's not talking about the government, the Chinese government itself. He's talking about Chinese people, but like that's not what he's saying here. Listen closely to what he is saying.
We're here. We're going to support the Chinese people, the Chinese governments. We do business with 1,000 companies here. Half are multinationals coming in, half are local companies. We always have managed our risk that we can handle almost whatever happens around the world. And I am an American patriot. I will do what my government tells me. I'm going to salute like anybody else, but I can tell them what I think. And you can imagine that I've been very clear when I sit down with them what I think and what we think matters. And like I said, a lot of the business community I think could be very helpful in that. This is not a simple matter. And sometimes we oversimplify things in a way which actually damage, the ultimate outcome.
So yeah, this is an individual that is running JP Morgan, which is, it's a bank that now holds well over 10% of all US deposits within the banking system. And now he's saying that he will support the Chinese government, not people, the government itself, at a time where we are seeing a lot of conflict. Also, it's kind of comical that he's talking about this and saying like, he's an American patriot and that, he'll salute like everyone else. But this is also someone that's been running and crying to the regulators to, come in and ban short selling of banking stocks and, to go after anyone that is talking about shorting banking stocks over on Twitter. And he's also telling the regulators to go after certain digital assets and target certain digital assets because he feels threatened. Like this is a guy that has tried to have the government and the regulators answer to him for so long. And I do believe that he is in their pockets. It's the number one reason why the FDIC allowed JP Morgan to actually have over 10% of all US deposits. It's wild what's happening around the banking system, but the traditional system itself, we already know that the cracks are showing. It's crumbling. What do you see over here? The BRICS nations are intensifying their efforts towards de-dollarization, which means utilize their local currencies for settling cross-border trade, announce a new reserve currency potentially backed by hard assets, expand. Saudi Arabia is looking to join BRICS in adoption to the BRICS Bank as one example. Saudi Arabia is a global heavyweight in the energy markets. Now, again, this is something that I've been watching for a little bit of time. For an example, here are all the countries interested in joining BRICS at the moment. The BRICS alliance is going to get much bigger. And, BRICS are definitely going to expand pretty quickly. I think right now we are a little bit early on de-dollarization as a full, move. The dollar is not going to disappear overnight. The dollar is not going to erode in terms of its reserve status overnight either. A lot of this is still going to take a little bit of time, as you guys do see. Like there's a ton of fear mongering around, the general consensus with the dollar and de-dollarization. But it is happening. Don't get me wrong. It is happening. But this trend is going to take a lot more than just what we recently seen in order to, see full-on de-dollarization and the dollar itself lose its reserve status. One thing that I think is going to hurt the U.S. quite a bit is hyperinflation. Now, a lot of people think that we're out of the inflation game, that everything's fine. But to me personally, U.S. dollars, as we do see a little bit more of a sort of blow to the dependency around the US dollar in foreign nations. A lot of those dollars that we massively print are going to flood back into the US, causing hyperinflation. That's going to do more harm to the US than de-dollarization, and ultimately could lead to much more de-dollarization movements, as well as a possible, threat to the reserve status. Now, also, Brazil calls for a common currency. A lot of these BRICS nations have been developing these new currencies. This one, BRICS currency, which we've been following for a little bit of time. A lot of people have been asking me, like, should we be worried about this right now? Ultimately, I think that this is, right on par with what we've been addressing around the Great Reset. I think that a lot of this is going to be utilized to usher it in. What I look at around these new currencies is decentralization. A lot of these nations want to have full-on decentralization, the same reason why CBDCs are a big thing. The reason why CBDCs are becoming a big thing, especially over in a lot of these areas, is because they want their own currency. They want to be responsible for their own currency because, them being tied to the US dollar, it only hurts them when we, screw up, right? But if we had full on, decentralization and central bank digital currencies in every single area, or if you will, wholesale CBDCs, that way, the retail sector doesn't get too scared. Wholesale CBDCs would allow for decentralization of every nation. And then, whatever the US does or whatever, certain areas do around the world, they would have to answer to their screw ups. That's the biggest problem that I think is happening around the traditional system, is that there's no there's no accountability to the actions that are happening. Like, for example, the Treasury wants to print another $17 trillion. And we see individuals saying like, the best way to escape inflation is to print more money. Like, that's not the answer. The answer is, we need to stop overspending. We need to, take accountability for our actions and realize like the problem that we caused. I mean, the US has been digging its hole for decades now. And 2008 should have technically have been a wake-up call, but ultimately we didn't do anything from 2008 to now. Also, Saudi Arabia is in talks to join China-based BRICS Bank. Multilateral lender found it as competitor, to West, has struggled to raise funds because of Russia exposure. And what do you see down here? The new development bank, the Shanghai-based lender, better known as the BRICS Bank, is in talks with Saudi Arabia on admitting the country as its 9th member, a move that would strengthen its funding options as founding shareholder Russia struggles under the impact of sanctions. In the Middle East, we attach great importance to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and are currently engaged in a qualified dialogue with them. This is from the new development bank, by the way. And it's definitely interesting at this moment on things happening around the BRICS. I mean, obviously, listen, as everyone has been focused on a lot recently, I think a lot of what we are seeing around the financial system is a little bit of a distraction. The dollar dying has been one of the biggest distractions. We have been focused on it, though, because again, these things take time. And I even said it, like, you don't have the global reserve currency, crash overnight. You don't have it lose its reserve status overnight. But I think that we will get to that point. And it's all centered out on the Great Reset. And this has been their plan since going all the way back to 2020. And I'm pretty sure that they've had a plan before that, too. This is from the World Economic Forum, managing director at the IMF. We do see my thanks to His Royal Highness, the Prince of Wales, and to Professor Schwab for bringing us together. Now is the time to think of what history would say about this crisis, and now is the time for us to all define our own role. Will historians look back and say this was the moment of a great reversal? Today, we see very worrying signs. 170 countries are going to finish this year with a smaller economy than at the start of the year, and we already project that there will be more debt, bigger deficits, and more unemployment. And there is a very high risk of more inequality and more poverty. Again, this is them utilizing the crisis at that time. They were utilizing pretty much fear-mongering around the economy as well to usher in this great reset, this reset of the economy. Now, what is this centered on? Well, in my opinion, this is centered out on CBDCs and crypto and DLT and things like that. And I think for the longest time, this has been a narrative being pushed for so long. The World Economic Forum did remove a few things. Like, for an example, like I was looking at this big picture over here. I couldn't really find the Great Reset one. I know that there used to be one on here, but now it's kind of gone. But they do still have the sustainable development over here. Again, this is the one that's apparently addressing some of the gravest challenges. But all of this is still centered on the same narrative around what the original Great Reset was. What do you see over here? So as we scroll down, COVID-19 lockdowns may be gradually easing, but anxiety around the world's social and economic prospects is only intensifying. There is a good reason to worry. A sharp economic downturn has already begun, and we could be facing the worst depression since the 1930s. But while this outcome is likely, it is not unavoidable. And yeah, I do think that, we will see a complete downfall of the economy, but it's going to take some time, probably years, maybe. I might be wrong on that. It could be sooner. But what we are seeing is the fourth industrial revolution. That's really what this is. And I've made videos on the fourth industrial revolution. This is all about control. They're going to utilize this as a full-on control narrative. And here you guys have the original diagram, by the way. Like I said, this is removed, like I can't see it, but you can see it here. And when we look at this, you can see what the main focus is: shaping the economic recovery, redesigning social contract skills and jobs, restoring the health of the environment, developing sustainable business models, revitalizing global cooperation, strengthening regional development, harnessing the fourth industrial revolution. That's the big one. As we actually look at the fourth industrial revolution, I just want to go over here and search it up. When we look at the fourth industrial revolution, 1 second. This has been one that I've been hyper focused on, just because it is definitely concerning, because this is talking about merging our physical, digital, and biological worlds into one. I just made a video talking about implantable technology and why we need to make sure that we are saying no to implantable technology. This is right on par with what they want to do around controlling individuals and society through technology. It's kind of right on par with the 15-minute cities that they wanted to push as well. This narrative and the World Economic Forum and what they are trying to do around this is extremely terrifying. I've said it many times, and I'm just going to leave you guys off with this video talking about the Great Reset. Now, this was posted right around 2020. It was like right around the middle to the end of 2020. Watch this closely. You know, they utilized a lot of examples. They utilized a lot of things to push this narrative. The pandemic was the beginning of the accelerant for all of this. And now what we are seeing is the after effects of what they started to do, which is the downfall of the economy to usher in this new economy, a monetary reset of the financial system to usher in the digital age of payments and CBDC and technology. It's definitely concerning. We have to watch this play out. A lot of people have been saying like resist CBDCs. I've been seeing it all over Twitter, all over everywhere. I want you guys to understand that CBDCs, although it seems as though we can resist them, they're most likely inevitable. And the central bankers always at the end of the day will win. So the best case scenario is to stockpile physical gold and silver, stockpile crypto, decentralized crypto, and cold storage it, by the way. Also, stockpile supplies. You can never go wrong with stockpiling supplies, and you want to ensure that everyone within your system, in terms of your family, friends too, you know, make sure that you are warning them about what is happening, because, you know, this is a reality. We've been following it for so long. CBDCs are now becoming a major deal. 90% of the global nations are moving towards a CBDC. It's happening, and it's happening very fast. And, you know, I would say that we're probably months, maybe even years away from extreme changes happening around the financial system, ultimately ushering in those CBDCs. And it all starts with the banks. The banks are on I would say that they're hanging on by a thread at this point. So with that being said, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys did, definitely leave a like, subscribe, to notifications on because of more free content. You guys are more than welcome to follow me on Twitter and join the free Discord down in the description below. This is up to you all. Have a beautiful day, beautiful night, wherever you guys are in this beautiful world. This has been Nick. Peace out, guys.